Welcome to Haunted Horizons GhostCast with Alison Oborn, Craig Cameron and Cag Olwood from Haunted Horizons.
Here we are. We've been a while since we came on, so we thought it's about time we came on. There is just me at the moment because, as always with GhostCast Paranormal Tales, I tend to tell a story first and then I'll bring the others in. And we're going to be talking about spirit boxes and ghost boxes tonight. Now, they are probably one of the most controversial things that is used in the paranormal field, especially the research field. Those and orbs have always been the ones that will bring up the most arguments. And I know where it comes from because I was very, very skeptical myself. Until one of my teammates came to me back in 2009 and said, can we use this? And what it was a broken radio. And I just looked at him and went, really? Really, Spills? We're not using that. It's just a radio. All it is snippets of radio. And then one night he came and he was trying to convince me that it worked. We were in the laneway of the old Adelaide jail. It was sitting on the steps in front of us. And really nothing was coming out of it. I'm standing there with my arms folded going, really? Like this. And then Spill said one thing. He said, please convince Alison that this is real. Now, the ghost box was clicking through the stations. Click, 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 because it's scanning. Suddenly it stopped clicking, which meant it had stopped scanning. And a clear male voice came out of it. Alison. And then it continued to click again, took up the scanning, click, 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 click. Now, Spills is just looking at me and I'm standing there just going, coincidence. But all the way home, driving home that night, it did play on my mind a little bit. Could it have been? Could it have been the other side reaching out, somehow using the radio frequencies, the white noise? Or was it just that's what we expected to hear and it just coincidentally came out at that point? Many more stories like that. And we'll be playing you some examples as well. But until then, I am going to bring on my teammates, Cag and Craig. So there you go. All right. I'm going to put it back on comments so I can see what you're saying. So we're just going to say hi, everybody. We're not going to say hello as you all individually come in. So, and if we're ignoring your questions, it's because we'll take those questions in between when we're talking. Otherwise, it gets very chaotic. So, hello, Craig, and hello, Cag.
Hello.
Hello, Alison. Hello, everybody.
Is that a bit bright? Is it a bit bright in your room today? Right?
It's very bright. You can see it looks like it's daylight behind me. So.
Oh, Custard Cream's there. We will just say hello to Custard Cream because Custard Cream, we actually timed it for you being away today. So there you go.
Exactly.
We did. So we're just going to say hi to you, but hi to everybody else. So the ghost box. So I will just ask, I'm just going to ask everybody listening because my end, I've got a very loud noise like butterfly wings fluttering. Let me know if you can hear it your end. So again, it's just trying to get the audio correct. Yes, Craig is way too cool. So what do you guys think of it all?
What, the ghost box?
The ghost box. My thoughts, I still very much, half of me, the rational me, sits on the fence. Because the rational me goes, it is just a broken radio going through the radio station, throwing out snippets of radio, and that's all we're hearing, and we're just making the answers to our questions. But the other side of me goes, I've heard some weird stuff come out of that. So over the years, and we use it nearly every night in the tours, and it's, yeah, because people want to hear it. So people are hearing a fluttering. Sounds like
I'll just mute myself a bit. Hold on, just see if it's better if I mute myself.
All right. That was probably best for Cag.
Oh, I wish we could do that on tours.
So what I'll do, Cag, is I'll bring you in when you're talking, and then I'll just mute you in between. Is that all right? So you talk now. Oh, she won't unmute now. There we
Is
go.
that better? I've done it
Yeah.
myself.
All right.
It shouldn't work because, like you say, it's a broken radio. It should not work. But it shouldn't. But some of the things we've had through the ghost box on all the investigations that we've done, it's just like, well, it's just strange. It's just, some of them have been so weird that, and so unusual that it's not just ordinary radio words.
Yeah.
And so relevant to what we're doing at the time. It does make you think, and it say it shouldn't work, but it seems to. That's what I can say. And now and again, yes.
Now and again, not all the time.
Not all the time.
What about you, Craig? I'm just muting Cag.
Yay!
Between. It's a shame we can't do that to her every day.
Yeah, I wish we could. I think between us, we've probably done like thousands and thousands of investigations. Out of those, how many do you reckon we've used a ghost box in?
Well, the reason why we use it also is because our guests want to hear it. They'd be really upset if we didn't get it out. And I always say it's not up to us to say whether it works or not. It's for them to try stuff out, which is what our tours are about. So, yeah, so I would say, several times a week? Easily, each week.
Yep. And how many different types of ghost boxes do you have?
I got them all out today. There's one up there. Yeah, Gag's doing the thing. There is another one above us there, and I've got the Huffy Puffy, as we nicknamed it, down the bottom there. So, and that's not including the models that you've got, Craig.
Yep.
So you and Cag have got two different models to what I've got up here.
So we've probably used those ghost boxes thousands of times, and we've got a lot of different types of ghost boxes. So they are radios. So you're going to get a lot of radio chatter coming through them, right? So as the radio chatter comes through, one of the things it can't do is it can't time the responses. So when we ask a question, if we get something out of that ghost box, even if it's radio chatter, what are the chances of that answering our question or being relevant to what we're doing?
Quite high. Quite high. And I'll get into that. Well, we'll both get into that later, because no doubt you've been had your thoughts on that as well. It is quite high. But yeah, it's how many?
Okay, let's take it
back. How many times have you really stood back and gone? Now I know there's natural explanations, and we'll get into those in a bit. How many times have you stood back and gone, that was way beyond? That was just so way beyond.
Several. I think one of the things a lot of people miss is that we use ghost boxes, which are radio receivers, in locations which are remote. So they're not receiving an actual signal from a radio station. They're not receiving signals from anything. So they're just a normal background interference you get from a radio. So what are the chances of a word coming through then?
Or a word that sounds. Actually, Brett, I'm just going to bring out Brett's comment. He thinks it provides another level of interaction for people on tours. So they can get into the investigation rather than feeling like just an observer. And I think that's correct. That's why we use them, and why we use them so often, isn't it? And I will just say, Brett Burford used to be, well, he still is, I guess. Did we ever disband Brett? I can't remember. Paranormal Field Investigators, my research team. So Spills and Brett kind of brought in the ghost box, and we were using it at the jail a lot. So, and I've got your favourite, Craig.
Oh God!
Sample of the ghost box.
Excellent.
So is it? Yeah, it's a hard one for me. I used it a lot as research before the tour started, just to more research the ghost box or the spirit box, the radio hack shack, whichever way you want to call it. And it wasn't so much to use it in research, it was to research it. In fact, we were trying to devise all sorts of, especially Brett, was trying to devise all sorts of ways of pushing it to its limits to see if it really was or it wasn't. And I got to say, I came away from the jail when we were first doing it going, what is the chances of that word coming out? It wasn't even, I was just hearing that word. It was a definite word. So I'm going to play with one of them because I want to get into a little bit of the history. I don't know if you know the history of Craig. I'm sure you do, because Craig is all-knowing. Or not. Because a lot of people ask me also, who is it who thought about using radio to contact the dead?
Well, it wasn't me.
I mean, who thought, I know, I'm going to play a radio and see if we can contact the dead?
Enlighten us.
Because at the end of the day, when I was 16, I came across Konstantin Raudiv, which was more kind of people used towards EVP, but he was actually using really what we do now with the diode and the radio. And he said it wasn't, but when you listen to his responses, and I remember it just blew my mind. It blew my mind. Of course, since then, people have been trying to communicate through radio frequencies and signals. And then in 1980, we had the Spiricom. Now, nobody was able to replicate that. He basically said it was, O'Neill said that he could have a two-way conversation with the dead with it. It was like a telephone. It wasn't just the odd word. He could talk to them. And nobody was able to replicate that. So his partner said that, well, the reason for that, Meek said it was because he was a medium. So it was because of that link that only he could get those responses out of the radio. So, and then of course, Frank's box, everybody kind of merits Frank's box for this. That was a loud noise, wasn't it? Just to say that's the wild kangaroos raiding the raiding the nuts, the horse nuts at the moment. She's just tipped the bin over. If you're wondering what the loud bangs are going to be in a minute. So yeah, Frank's box, and it kind of went from there. And I suppose the Radio Shack hack was kind of the poor man's version. So, which obviously I can't afford the Frank's box, and there wasn't that many made. So yeah, so that's kind of how it's been evolving over the time. So you've heard of Frank's box. I would like to have had the original Frank's box, but I never got that one. Cag, would you like to talk? No, the platform's still there.
Is the Frank box the only one you haven't got then? Because you've got all the others.
Well, I haven't got the Spiricom either.
Oh my gosh, Craig, there's two she's not got.
I've got to find where the Spiricom is. Get a blueprint on how to build one. So Frank's box and Spirit box, no. Frank's box was quite expensive. So, and yeah, Gary Gulker is another one that took it up, which I'm just looking at there. Yeah, so it's been evolving over time, and it's just, yeah, it's kind of widely used now. So how's the sound? Is that fluttering stopped? No. And of course, you've got the PSBs. So that's PSB 7. There is just behind above the PSB 7 there, you've got the 11, and you've got also a new version of it, which, by the way, Craig, I'm getting to add to my collection. It's a new version. So
excellent.
All right. Well, any thoughts? Any kind of thoughts on your thoughts on it all? And you're on speaker now, Cag.
Go, Cag.
Yeah. Well, any thoughts? Actually, can I just ask this question? Somebody says, what's the difference between them all? Between all the ghost boxes?
Well, most of the ones I've got, there's always subtle differences on the newer ones, PSBs, S-box over there, whereas all of these here and here and here, they're just radios. So what you've done is you've snipped a wire, or you've bent off a wire, disconnected it, so it can't stop on a radio station. So it's just scanning through the radio station waves. This is why the big argument is that it's just kind of radio snippets that are coming through. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to play one of the ones from the Adelaide jail. So I'm just going to bring it up.
So just to let us know you're here.
So now, share audio and go across. So, all right. So this was probably one of our very early ones. And I'm going to ask you guys what you think about it. I know Craig's heard it till his ears are bleeding. This one. So where we are, we're in the Adelaide jail. And this is Spills over here. His proper name is Spilios. So now Spilios as a first name is very rare for a Greek who assures me. He only knows his grandfather, him, and I think there's been a couple other that I've ever come across. So the chances of his name coming out the radio station at the time that you're asking for it would be fairly rare. My name, Alison, not obviously Cag, Craig, things like that. They're common names, so it could be coincidence. So we're asking for Spills' name to be said. So
just to let us know you're here, can you start by saying one of our names, please? Can you say Spilios, please? Thank you.
I don't know if you heard that clearly, because I don't know where it's coming through. So hopefully people did hear that. I'll just play that little section again. You can excuse my face, guys, because don't forget I was a huge skeptic on this. Absolute huge skeptic. So
Thank you.
now the question would be, does that just sound like Spilios? Or was it actually the word Spilios? So a couple of other things followed on that. I actually held my torch up, and then I held the jail keys up as well. So this is in the same session. So yeah, my face does look like that.
Thank you.
Can you see like you recognize that? So I'm not sure how clearly it came across there. Maybe it's me just hearing what I want to hear, and that will get us into talking about the more natural stuff. But what do you think to those ones, Craig? I know you've heard that one before.
I've heard that one a million times.
No, Craig is actually sick of that one. We played it on so many example tours.
Yeah, we've got so many good examples of ghost box responses, and I think it's one of the things we very rarely put out there as evidence, mainly because a lot of people would attack the evidence saying that it is random, or you do hear what you want to hear. And there's various ways that we can minimise people having an objection. And one of the things that we do on our investigations is make sure that we minimise that input from people. So I think it's interesting when we hear Spilios, because I don't know, it's a different voice saying Spill's names. So the only thing it could be is either biofeedback, or it could be someone else saying his name. So, you know, if you go down the road of manufactured evidence, you could have someone out the back yelling out Spilios at exactly the same time. So, you know, that's one reason. It's very clear that it's not pareidolia. It says Spilios. So I just don't think it's either of those two cases. I don't know what it is. I think it's really weird.
Yeah, that one was a little bit weirder than. It's not often you get it that clear. That's why I don't think most of the time it does seem to be radio. And there is a lot of natural explanations as well. And you were bringing up one of them, actually on an earlier episode that we did, Craig. And that was about how you hear words and misinterpret the words that you're hearing.
Yeah, well, just watch an episode of Ghost Adventures and you'll be able to see that in action. If they didn't put up on the screen what they thought the word said, you'd have no idea of picking the same word they said. And if you're listening for a word, you're more likely to hear it. So if it's a garbled response, and if you say how many ghosts are in the room, and it comes out as 6, it could be anything, and you're just wanting to hear that number 6 come out. So I think sometimes you plant your own expectation inside your head. So you're waiting for that specific answer. So you need to have ways of stopping that. You can't preconceive that word's going to come out of a ghost box. So if it is a method of ITC where you can communicate with the other side, then it's got to be something that a group of people will hear and not misinterpret. So I think that's one of the things we need to always look at when we're using the ghost box, is you need multiple people to agree on the word that came out of it. And if that's not possible, you need to minimize that word can be misinterpreted. So, and that's one of the problems with the ghost box. A lot of people don't like them, but we still use them. There's got to be a reason why we still use them. And it's because we have, over our years, got weird stuff out of it. And one of those things is that Spilios thing. How the hell are you going to get Spilios out of it? A name that you very rarely hear coming out exactly the same time in a different voice, so very clearly. But is it a ghost? That's the question, right? Is it coming from the other side?
Ghost? Is it a ghost? So, because we do have such a thing called audio pareidolia, and again, we're so used to pareidolia being seeing faces in clouds, seeing Jesus in toast, but we will also listen to static and other random noise and hear things in that as well, because it's where our brains are primed. So if you're listening to the white noise and the static, then sometimes we may hear a word that we want to hear, or we think we're hearing out of it. So, it's been brought up before. So I do try and tell tourists to be very careful on what they're hearing. You want something very definite, very unusual, and something that not just one person is hearing. So, and there's another thing, apophenia. Get the word out, and I will eventually. It's been a long lockdown for 3 days. I was stressed. So we should have been working tonight, but there you go. You get us on here instead. And again, that's very similar. You've got expectations, and it's like what Craig was saying. We're expecting to hear a response, and we'll hear that response in all that chaos and that words, and may not even be, we're just connecting, may not even be that word. So yeah, your brains can be a bit tricky, but I still think Spilios is a little beyond that. Just my thinking. But that wasn't the only one we had at the jail. I'm going to play a few of them from the jail. These are all our early PFI, Paranormal Field Investigator days. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a couple of them, some of our more intriguing ones, and then I'm going to throw to you two to see if you remember any specific stories that have really made you stop and think, any kind of incidents on the tours when you've been using it, or even in research when you've been using it. So start thinking. So, all right, back to this one. And I will just set the scene. Basically, most of the time, this is Spills again, by the way. He features a lot in the 2009 footage because he had the ghost box that he was bringing in. And it's this particular ghost box that we're using. So, and you can hear it's clicking through the radio station. Click, 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 click. That's because when it hits, it does the click and then it moves on, clicks again. Most of the time that we were in the Adelaide jail, most of what we got was get out, leave now. It was constantly telling us to get out. And in some weird voices as well, that again could be from the radio, but would be very unusual to be, I don't know, See what you think. As I said, I'm not going to say it works or it doesn't. This is not about convincing you that the ghost box works. This is just about presenting you with some of the things that we've had happen, why we use it, and kind of see what you all think of it. It's all down to what you think. It's everybody has their own thoughts on it. So. And again, that get out and then out. 2 different voices. It's a little unusual to come out the radio. Get out. Out. I'll keep going.
Loves the lady.
And that was a definite leave. And it's a really weird way of saying it as well. When we're saying, do you want us to leave? Leave. It was a real, yeah. And you can't say. I didn't even hear it at the time. It wasn't until I listened back that I actually heard that. And it just seemed so weird way of saying it. And we got it all the time. Out, leave. It got a little bit ruder as well, by the way. I won't put that up today. It did actually say leave, CUNTS as well. That's on the long version, which is up on YouTube. So now when you get that word out as well, it's I'm just going to play some of the, I don't have to give you the video for this. Again, these are at the jail. I was asking for the ghost box to say my name, and I don't even know if it came out the ghost box because it doesn't sound like a radio station, but it's a very haunting voice that comes out. Hopefully you can hear them. Oops.
Can you just confirm there is somebody there when you try to say my name, Alison?
It's very faint. It's a lot. Hang on, let's see if I can get the. That's up here.
Can you just confirm there is somebody there when you try to say my name, Alison?
Yeah, it's not playing. Typical technical. So basically, what we were hearing is, and go back and listen to it. Yes, Alison, like that. It's a very haunting. I don't even know if it came out the ghost box. Then we were saying goodbye. So Spills was about to turn it off, so he's saying see yous. You'll hear a little old man, and then you'll hear a female voice say a word. So see what you hear on this one.
Say it.
So
Say it.
now, I know you two have heard that before. Have you heard that one? I'm just trying to unmute you, Kag, but you're in control of that by looks.
Yeah.
So have you heard that one before?
Yes.
See, there's no point in telling you what it says. Yeah, just like goodbye. It's like, Alison. I'm going to play it again now. I've told you, because this isn't about research on this podcast, but you've got the old man saying my name, and then you've got a female voice going, goodbye.
Say it.
I mean, that you've got to say that is weird. Weird timing of 2 words to come out of the radio station, different voices, different. It would have to be different points in the scan as well, wouldn't it?
We've just fixed the fluttering, by the way.
Have you? What was it?
It's the aircon.
I thought I'd never heard that sound before, so I don't know why it started.
So I'm just going to die now, but don't worry about it. You can carry on.
So we can leave you on now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that it is weird. See ya, heard female say bye. Yeah, and that's what we heard. And the chances of that being coming out radio, what don't you think, Craig? Craig's standing, looking very, very thoughtful there. Well, I can't see because his eyes are covered up with glasses.
That's because I'm asleep. The first thing I'd say is they won't sound like any words that come out of a radio, not any radio stations that I listen to. How many radio stations you've actually listened to where you get a word coming out that says, Alison, goodbye? You just don't get that sort of tone. You don't get that sort of stuff coming out of a normal radio. So you've got to ask whether they're two words put together. Maybe they're two words, two different frequencies, two different voices stuck together to sound like it's a little bit haunting. Because, you know, you should get a lot of words. You listen to a ghost box, it should go through, cycle through the whole thing. You should get, in each cycle, 50 words for 50 different radio stations. And if you don't get a word, you should at least get 30. But when we cycle it through, it goes through so quickly, you're lucky to get 1 or 2 words. And when you do, most of them sound like a weather forecast. So it sounds like a DJ. These ones don't. They sound like someone else's voice. They sound like something from the other side. It sounds like it's out of a horror movie.
And it's actually answering correctly to the question.
Yeah.
And it's like, spells are saying goodbye. And then, yeah.
So you said before there's actually a high chance of words coming out of the ghost box which answer our questions or come out perfectly timed to our questions. What are the chances now? How far down the list of odds are we going? 1 in 2, 1 in 50, 1 in 100, 1 in a million. Where are we?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just looking at Brett. Again, I'm looking at Brett's comments because Brett actually was very big in the early days with me doing this research with the ghost box. And as he said, the worst questions to ask with the ghost box is a yes or no answer question, because they're the most common words that are ever going to come out of a ghost box. But specific words like see us, Alison, goodbye, is very different. It's very different. It's harder to put it down, I guess, to just random stuff that we're hearing.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like they're voices that should be coming off of a radio. So go put your radio on now, turn it on, and cycle through the whole frequency or the bandwidth like we normally do, and see if you get normal words coming out of it now.
But you will get normal words, but it's not the clear words of that particular question. I'm going to turn it on. This is what it sounds like, all right, because I can turn it on now, and you will just get random. So that's basically the problem here is I've got a lot of interference. There's not a lot coming out of it either. A little bit there. So it's very static because of all the, I've got about 3 or 4 computers, hundreds of hard. Oh, there's a big cat. There's a ghost cat behind you there, Kate.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to come out with custard cream. The occasional comment is going to get my little attention here because custard cream, ghosts can mimic voices, can't they? That's a really, now we're going into more interesting stuff. And this is another, I'm going to bring this up actually. You've stopped using 2 ways, haven't you? You and Peter at the Adelaide jail, Craig.
Mm-hmm.
And why have you stopped using 2 ways with each other at the Adelaide jail?
We've had a couple of incidents where we have gotten we've gotten phrases through their walkie-talkies which have indicated to me that something's wrong. So we've got certain code words that we use amongst the guides. So if we need some extra assistance or we need something done, we can use those, and they've come through on the walkie-talkie. And they've included both those code words and my name. And I've rushed off to see what is wrong in Peter's group, and there's been nothing wrong. He hasn't touched the walkie-talkie. So a couple of times we've heard it through there, and they're just UV receivers, so they're just getting signals the same way as what a radio does. And there was a couple of times, and this has been twice, that we've had incidents which I've been called away from my group to attend a problem, and there hasn't been a problem at all, and I haven't even received a call. And we've had 3 people on both of those occasions have a walkie-talkie, and the 3rd person has not been involved in receiving that call. And that's impossible. We're all on the same channel. So definitely there has been something very unusual between the communication with me and Peter at the Adelaide jail. And I don't know what it is, but it's culminating us not using walkie-talkies on the investigations. We'll, if there's a problem, walk to the other group now because we can't trust them. And I don't know where that comes from. I honestly have no idea how those incidents came up. Like CAG was there for one of them, and she didn't receive one of the calls on the walkie-talkie at all. So, you know, it's pretty serious when we can't communicate with each other. And I don't know what did it. I have no idea. All I can say is if it was a random truck going past, number one, they called me, they said the code word, they said my name. How the hell would they know? So it was a little bit unsettling when it first happened to us. Kat?
CAG, you were a guest when that happened with Spills and Ash.
Yes, at Taylor Town.
Yes.
So yeah, that happened. That happened during our because we went off investigating, and that happened with Ash. And he was called off elsewhere to the furthest and darkest part away from where everybody was on his two-way, thinking that it was Spills. When he got to Peak Station where he was told to go, there was nobody there.
And
so we went back.
We were all on the same channel. We never heard. In fact, Spills was next to me the whole time.
Yeah, the cat's been rescued. Yeah, of course. Then we went back later on, and all hell broke loose in that area. So it was just like I don't know. I was there, was just trying to get in there. It was really cool. But my favourite one to do with the ghost box, though. Can you remember back the very first time I did Saint Cecilia with you? And we had all those guests dressed up in onesies.
Yes.
And that the ghost box session we had at the end, where it was telling us to leave, get out, good night. That was really interesting because it was coming out with exactly the words we're asking for it to come out with.
Yeah. Gosh, that was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago.
long time ago. I think your air conditioning's back on.
I'll turn myself off now.
Can we say that all the time to her, Craig? We can have a code word. Just say to CAG whenever she's talking too much, hey, your air conditioning's on. And then she knows to shut up.
Okay, we need a code word for that then.
And CAG had that at the jail as well, because I remember we were doing, I don't know if you remember this, Craig, but when we did our lockdown in COVID the first time, we did that 3-way live stream from jail, Tailem and Z Ward, near at Z Ward. And everybody was hearing my voice at the Adelaide jail in the new building. And I have listened back and it does actually sound like me talking. Problem is, I was 90 kilometres away up at Tailem Bend. I wasn't even anywhere near the jail. So it's almost like Custard Cream said, like it seems to be able to mimic. Now, if it can mimic 2 ways and radio frequencies, if it can manipulate that, then does that make the ghost box and manipulating the radio frequencies and the white noise there, does that make it more relevant? Does that make it more interesting?
Well, depending on the circumstances, it does. I mean, I think if you look at the bigger picture, you got to ask the question: is it ghosts doing it, or is it something natural that's influencing the radio? So, are we dealing with someone CB? Are we dealing with a 2-way? Are we dealing with a radio? We're dealing with DJs all combining the same signal into something random coming through, or is it simply something that we're just trying to overlook? We're just overlooking a simple word coming out of the radio at the time. They sound creepy, they sound different, and I love those sort of voices because I don't know what they are. But it seems to be a little bit ridiculous when you say that those voices and those examples you played are natural things. You expect to hear things. We weren't expecting to hear those words out of those pieces that you played. So it can't be our brains making it up. We can't be anticipating those words because this is not how our brains work. And because all you guys heard the same thing as well, it's hardly misinterpretation. The voice is different. The voice is actually quite creepy. But can they manipulate the voices? It's obviously not their voices, right? We don't think that the guy that said Spilios on the ghost box was actually the ghost's voice. So when he used to live 100 years ago, whenever it was that his voice? Did he have that little Italian accent that ghost had?
Well, he wouldn't have vocal cords anymore. And this is my other thing is, well, you know, if they're ghosts, how can they speak? Because they don't have vocal cords.
Well, we don't know that. They might.
Maybe they do.
We don't know whether we're just a ball of energy or whether we actually take a form on the other side. Like, no one can tell us that. So, you know, that's a possibility, a remote one, but it's a possibility. But do we have gender on the other side? Do we have a male voice as opposed to a female voice? I actually like the digitized voices. You know, sometimes you get that really evil, demonic digitized voice. That's something that's not radio. That's something that's different, and it's something completely different to what you expect out of a radio. It's the same concept as if you get the C-bomb come out. If you get one of those things, and that's not the radio, but what the hell is it? Who the hell is saying it? We're not listening for that word to come out, are we?
Actually, I had the best C-bomb, didn't we, from the British Hotel the other day? Do you remember? Yeah, and we were going live from the British Hotel in North Adelaide there, and it's on the live stream on Haunted Horizons Facebook page. And I put on the portal, the Huffy Puffy, which is just a ghost box with all the reverb and stuff like that. And I think I heard the clearest CUNTS I have ever heard coming out of anything. And I used to work on radio as well, so I know we have a squelch button. There's no way you're going to let that word get through, not on AM radio. So 5AA is not going to let that get through. It doesn't even let even lesser words get through. So I don't know. As I said, I'm not saying I believe it's ghost. I'm not saying I believe it's anything. Now, you're very scientific because you are actually is it degrees, masters? I can never remember, Craig. All I know is you're more intelligent than Cag and me. So in physics. So I'm going to come out with Brett's because Brett keeps coming out with some interesting stuff. It's probably very beyond Cag and me. Brett, we should have just brought you on. Next time, let us know you're going to be there and we'll bring you on. Not too late, by the way, Brett, if you want a link. If it is paranormal, the question is whether it is manipulating the radiates or whether we are randomly picking up on something that is happening without consideration of frequency. Over to Craig for that one. You're going to shut my door because my husband will come on.
Well, the second point is an interesting one, but you would be able to work that out by going to the frequency you're hearing it on. So if you decided to put it on a radio station and you cycle through, then that voice comes through at a certain bandwidth. What Brett's saying is if we stop it on that bandwidth, we should be able to hear a whole conversation. And that's what they're communicating on. So what we don't do with the radio is we don't sit down and say, is Fred there? And then try every little station frequency. We don't do that. And that's a hard thing to do. So I think there's a good case for that, but it's a hell of a long process to try to find the right frequency for it. Maybe the actual frequency changes depending on the environment. Maybe it's the same one the whole time. If it's the same one the whole time, someone should have found it by now because you'd use those different frequencies quite regularly. I think the other thing is, one of the things just to consider is radio waves or radio frequencies are just part of the electromagnetic spectrum. So, if we can manipulate anything like visible light, which a lot of people do, they think they can, come on and they can appear to us, and that's manipulating electromagnetic fields. Radio waves are no different. Microwaves are no different. They're just a little bit of a higher frequency than what radio waves are. So it's all the same concept with a different amount of energy. So they should be able to manipulate different EM frequencies. That's why we use K2s, or electromagnetic field detectors. We use those because that's the nature of what most people think they manipulate. But I think it's broader than that. I think they manipulate the environment and different things in the environment we need to detect when things go different, they change. And that's why we have all these different electronic pieces of equipment, is we try to, let's go broader. I think one of the things we're missing here is the fact that the ghost box and the communication is only a small portion of what we do. Think of it in terms of when we do a proper investigation, we get out there with all these pieces of equipment. We get out with recording devices, detection instruments, and ITC devices. So we're there trying to do a lot of different things. And the ghost box is only part of it. So if you want to argue the ghost box is a load of crap and you only get little bits and pieces out of it and it's all our heads, what about the rest of the equipment going off? And what about the more recent techniques we've got, like the Estes experiments, which we can manipulate all those things and minimize the amount of pareidolia that's involved in it? So I think that's actually pretty a pretty missed point with how we do the investigations.
We're going to get to Brett. You should just come on. Are you? Mind you, it's going to get very, very deep and scientific. So Brett's now saying, because I know Craig can't see the comments as well. So excuse me while I repeat the thing. I don't think it's radio stations, but it is radio waves. The way the receivers work, getting a vocal response has to be in the radio spectrum range. And he says then, so what frequency or frequencies do most responses occur on? Do they vary? Does one voice instance occur on one frequency, or does it slightly vary?
Look, I think you can answer that question pretty easily, because think of what it's like. If you walk into a room, you adjust the amount of temperature in the room. So it's probably going to increase the temperature in a cold room or decrease in a warm room. So you're automatically affecting the environment. If you walk into a place and you stamp your feet, you've got sound waves going flying off. You've got vibrations flying off. You adjust a lot of different things in there. If I take in all the ghost hunting equipment, I can detect what you're doing. I know you're there without actually seeing you. I can hear you, and the devices are giving me something as well. Just because you're a spirit, if you're in that location, there should be ways that we can detect you. And if that's a range of radio waves, we've got to find that range. But if it's a ghost box where we can actually hear you, then that might be another decent tool to be able to do it as well. People miss the whole point. We're not dealing with ghosts. We're just dealing with dead people. We just have to be a dead person there, and they want to communicate with us. And then we should be able to find them because we've got enough equipment to work out that something's wrong and doesn't make sense. And, you know, most people coming into my investigations know I love the EDI. And that's because when that damn air pressure light goes off, it's sitting down there doing nothing. We're in this closed room. It starts to flash. And wow, all of a sudden stuff happens around us. It's almost like someone's entered the room. It's like watching someone open the door and walk in. And, you know, you've got to be in the environment to know what I'm talking about. Is you've got to be there and watch all the stuff happen around you. And then you can have a completely different perspective on it. You can't sit back and say, you know, ghost box is all pareidolia, because I don't think it is. I've heard some very weird conversations come out of the ghost box. You know, it's a radio. I've heard some very strange languages come out of it in my time, and I'm sure the girls have as well. So to me, you can say as much as you like about it, and I'm not a big fan of the ghost box, but there are some very odd things that it's given to me in my time.
Every rational thought goes, no. I am kind of looking at questions now with the ghost box. Anita, with the ghost box repeating same words, could that be an echo? The ghost box isn't actually, it hasn't got a microphone to echo, if that's what you mean. Is it echoing what we're saying? It's basically just using the radio frequencies and white noise for that one. I'm not sure about the apps that people use, because I'm not convinced that it hasn't got some sort of, it's utilizing the microphone on your phone. I'm not sure. But it's just weird. It's now getting back to, now here's the interesting thing though. So we all say it's bias. We're expecting to hear a word, and then we hear the words coming out. We put that, it's like the old game. You hear the word and you put it to your question. So, oh, it must be answering my question, but it's just a radio snippet. So what do you think of the Estes, Craig? And I'm going to play one example of the Estes in a minute while you explain about the Estes.
Gee, thanks. The Estes experiment was just a pure experiment, which was performed at the Stanley Hotel in Colorado in a town called Estes. And a couple of paranormal investigators in 2016 went in, and they were using a PSP-7, I think, a Ghostbox PSP-7. But the problem is they knew that you could get pareidolia, and people would say the evidence is all crusty because you're just hearing what you want to hear. So they thought, let's take that bias away, and stuck headphones on. They connected the headphones to the ghost box, and so only one person could hear what was coming out of the ghost box. And that person was silenced in that they couldn't hear what was going on in the room. And the other people in the room started to ask questions. So the person with the ghost box on was only interpreting what they heard from the ghost box. They didn't know what questions were being asked, and the results they had were actually quite breathtaking, because it was like the people would ask a question, and then the ghost box, via the person performing the experiment, was giving some very interesting answers. And that gets rid of that whole bias situation. They can't hear the questions. They're interpreting what's coming with the ghost box. So maybe something is trying to communicate via the ghost box. So it was one of those things which we've started to use on our investigations as well. They're a bit more difficult to set up. There's always flaws with them. But what we can also do is, instead of putting one person on headphones, we can have multiple people on headphones as well. So how cool is that? So we've got now 4 or 5 people that can listen to the ghost box, and if all 5 agree on the right words and they've been answered by one of the other investigators or asked by one of the other investigators, how brilliant. Takes away a lot of those biases that people say about the ghost boxes being pareidolia.
Yeah, I'm going to play an amusing one, Kev, because I do love this one. From Licking Jail. You know which one? I'm going to put Kag back on for a second. Oh, I can't, because I thought I had control over you, Kag.
No, you never have control over me.
Thank goodness for that.
Try.
This is the best
This
one
is the best
ever.
one ever. So what I'm going to do is just that condition with yours, Kag. Is you're going to see Kag enjoy this bit. Kag and me are at Licking Jail. So if you haven't watched the full Licking Jail 2-part that I've got up there, so we went off to America. We went to Licking Jail, and most of the 2 episodes is to do with the Estes. None of our other episodes ever we did as much as we did here, because what we were getting out was so relevant, so beyond being coincidental. Now, I thought, well, maybe because I'm the caller, I was hearing swearing and stuff like this, and the girls that run the place were getting really embarrassed, because they said it's never had it like this. And they're actually saying to the ghost, play nice with the ladies, because it's just F this and F that. And just to make sure it wasn't just me that was hearing this, we threw it over to Ryan from Paranormal Quest. I said, yeah, you have a go with it. You put the headphones on. So we got Ryan kind of right down the hallway. I'm going to just put it onto the share screen. So I'm here. Ryan's way down the hallway there. He's not looking at me. He's got his headphones on. He's got the ghost box running, the one that you've heard, the click, 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 that one that I took with me. And Keg speaks, and I just think this is hilarious, Craig. You're going to love this one. This is the funniest one, I think. Most enjoyable one I've ever done. So
That's me. Old bitch.
I love this guy. Can we take him home?
No. Can we get out?
He's talking to you. Okay. He is here.
Are you a broken record?
didn't answer him.
Alright. That lady over there.
Old bitch.
Yeah, that's the one.
I can't do anything for laughing now. Oh my god, I love this guy.
I was trying to work out whether it was me or you, but I pointed to you and said it again, so I'm going to say it to you.
What's the matter with me? What have I done wrong? What have I done wrong?
Dick. This is weird.
Oh dear. So it was just the timing of it. Old bitch the first time, but when I turned and I pointed, do you mean? And he answered it again before I even finished, old bitch again. And as I said, Ryan had his eyes shut, he had his headphones on, and even he said it's weird. And then when I said about when Kag spoke again, it called her a dick. That's kind of how the episode goes. And I will just say it, we don't always get told to leave, get out, old bitch, and we're not always abused, but these are prisons. It's the Adelaide jail that we had most of the get outs, and other places that it can be quite chatty and quite talkative. So, and Ash, I'm going to go back to Ash. I know I did see Ash's question or comment earlier, Ash, but it wasn't the appropriate time to answer it. Ash was at the Gungellan. So Ash McInnes got us into the Gungellan, and I know Craig was there, Cag was there, and I was on, was it me that was on the headphones?
Can we just say what the Gungellan is?
Oh, the Gungellan Hotel, that's the hotel used in McLeod's Daughters. So we went there to investigate. It was on the road, the live investigations we've been doing. So it's up there. Go and have a look at it. It's up on YouTube as well. And I had the headphones on way across the room. Helen, the owner, started to say something, and she said a word, and I said it exactly the same time. Exactly the same time. I came out with it at the exact moment she did. So, yeah, it's... The Estes is really, I find, more interesting than listening to the Ghost Box. So, it's a jail. Yeah, somebody, Custard Cream said it's a nasty person. It's a jail. It's jail language. It's what you would expect, but it's not going to come out radio. I actually said to the girls from Licking Jail, Holly and my brain's gone, lockdown. Sorry, you'll know. But I actually
Terry.
Sorry?
Terry,
that's it. Sorry, Terry. You know I know who you are and I miss you. But I actually had to ask, does your radio stations ever come out with words? Because it's coming out with a lot of bad words. There was a lot of F's, a lot of C's. And they just said, no way would American radio stations, especially in their area, would ever come out with words like that was coming out. So that makes it a lot. That's why I like the Estes much more than just listening to the Ghost Box. So are you still quiet there, Cag? 3 minutes.
Yeah, I agree.
3 minutes.
I agree. I much prefer to do the Estes than ordering a Ghost Box, but I always start with the Ghost Box first, so people can hear what it's like.
Yeah.
And get them to understand how we're all listening. If I say how many people in the room, we're all listening for a certain number, and then we go on to the Estes from there.
Yeah.
To take out the bias. So.
Yeah. And you've had some really interesting conversations at Thailand as well, haven't you? It's been an interesting journey since we've been using it, I've got to admit. It's been very interesting. I think you got called a blonde bitch at another, which was Randolph County.
I did. A blonde bitch. I was quite pleased about that one. It was pretty cool.
So, plus, it's not as annoying on everybody who's listening when they're listening to the click of it. So,
you have to get the right person on the headphones, though, that is willing to say words.
Well, this is the other thing, that we're all used to our own Ghost Box. We've all got different models, and they all sound very different. Like I don't like yours, Cag, and you don't like mine.
And we're both not as Craig's.
And I think your ear kind of gets tuned to what you're listening to, and it's hard when you put somebody on that has never heard the Ghost Box before, and you put them on, and they're just, it annoys their ears until they can tune in a little bit more. Now, is it that we just tune in and can hear words clearer of the radio, or again, it goes back to the natural, doesn't it? The other thing, I don't know about you two, have you ever found that you're listening to the Ghost Box and then you go back and listen back to it on the computer, and suddenly there's words there that you go, how on earth did we ever miss that? It is so clear. How on earth did we not hear that at the time? So
that happens all the time. Like I get it all the time where I hear nothing on it, but some of the guests do, and vice versa. And I'm just dumbfounded that the guest didn't hear what I heard. And sometimes it takes until you review the footage before you can hear what is coming out of the ghost box. So I don't know how that works. I think it's sometimes like when you go back with let me backtrack. Sometimes what I'll do is when we're investigating inside one of the rooms or one of the cells, I'll put someone outside and close the door, and they'll listen to the same conversation with the ghost box, because sometimes when you're further away or you've got a filter between the ghost box and the listener, you sometimes hear things a little bit differently to what the people inside the room do. And you might actually pick up on a response that we never got straight away. I think it's the same with reviewing the footage the next day, either audio or the video, because I think you can pick that up the next day because you're listening to it differently. And again, we're trained not to expect an answer or to ask questions where we don't have a preconceived idea of what it is. And so we're listening for something a little bit different. Because we listen to hours and hours of ghost boxes, we're sort of, pick things up ourselves the next day a lot better because we're in a more comfortable environment. It's more relaxed, whereas when you're there with guests, you're sort of looking after the guests a little bit and you're trying to, make sure they're comfortable in that environment. And sometimes I've been sitting back there going, how the hell didn't they hear anything? And I'll ask a question. I'll say, did anyone get any response there? And they'll say, no. So hang on, you didn't hear it say that. And you replay it and you go, oh my God. So we've had that quite a number of times. So I can understand the next day when you're reviewing the footage that you do get a lot of stuff.
Mm. I quite often, when you are in cells or something like that and I'm listening and I have the same thing. It's like, hey guys, it just clearly said this, but you lot aren't reacting to it. And it's almost like it cuts out that noise by having that buffer and the words seem to be a bit clearer. But yeah, I've found stuff. I've been going back over the some of the ghost box sessions. I'm going, how on earth did we miss that? It's like that leave that we got on the jail one. You'll hear me say it because Spill said, did you just hear that? Just said leave. And I said, did it? It was a really clear word, leave. But I didn't hear it at the time. But mind you, they think it runs through so quickly that really our ears only pick up about 20% of it. So that's why it's always good to have lots of people listening, because each one of us is going to hear a different part of that running through. So we're getting close to the end. We will need to get Brett on one day, I think. Brett, if you're watching, we'll have to get you on for another topic I believe we can get you on for, which I want to get you on for. Actually, I should get Spills and Brett on. Talk about kind of the research we used to do. How's that like radio? Because they do have swear words on it. Melissa, that's a good thing. What about that, Craig? Because would they all pick up on satellite, or is it just running through? You would think that a radio, some sort of radio frequency would, if it's not the definite radio stations like 5AA, would it be a satellite station that's swearing out?
Well, I think it's the same argument, isn't it? Like if it's a radio, whether it's a satellite beaming something down, let's say, for example, Netflix is throwing out, Pulp Fiction, for example, and we're getting the audio of Pulp Fiction somehow on our ghost box or on our radio. We should expect to get a lot more profanity than what we do. We should expect to get a lot more words than what we do. And it should be predictable in that it's coming through on the same frequency. So we should be getting it every 5 or 10 or 20 seconds. We just find that's not the case. So whether it's something like, favorite is truck driving past using a CB or a two-way and sending out, a signal from there. And we just happen to be in the right place as they're calling one of their mates in the CB. That might be the case. But then it goes back to that whole concept with me and Peter and the two-way. How do they know my name, and how do they know the code word? What sort of weird coincidence would that be, that we had a truck driver going past on Port Road exactly at the right time that we asked the question? So I don't know, like they're coming from somewhere. The question is, are they coming from a radio, a satellite? Are they coming from the other side? And that's the thing we're trying to find out.
Yeah.
One example that I had, and I think that it's one which I always remember, it's from probably about 5 or 6 years ago in the back room at Old Tailem Town in the church. So it's a Sunday school room, and a couple of the girls went back there and they were playing on a ghost box. And I was listening to the ghost box from the church. I was just sitting down having a lazy moment, and the girls are out there just talking to it. And I'm scratching my head going, sounds like a funny language. And I walked in there and I recognized a few Spanish words from it. And the girls who were there were having this full-on conversation, asking questions in Spanish, and they seemed to be getting responses in Spanish. It was really weird. It's like having an English version of a ghost box conversation, but in Spanish. And the girls came out, and the girls were actually, you know, almost in tears because they thought that they were having a conversation with their deceased grandfather, who was Spanish. As I found out, the girls were Spanish. So it was the first time I knew they had perfect English. So listening to them have a conversation on a ghost box and hearing Spanish come out of it was very unusual.
Oh, I can, talking of personal stuff, that seems to happen a lot on our tours as well. It's nothing to do with the venue. It seems suddenly we go. I think the one, I can't remember who the guide was, Craig. I don't know if it was you, but I don't know if you remember at the Adelaide Jail. This is going back a couple of years. There's a group of people, and one of the guys in the recreation room thought that his father had come through, and he was pestering me and pestering me. Have you got the footage? I want to hear the footage. I think my dad came through. And of course, I'm running a business. I don't have priorities. I have terabytes and terabytes of footage. All right, and I haven't got enough man hours in the day to be going through it unless something really big has happened. And then for about 2 months, he kept pestering me, and I kept saying, yeah, I'll try and get onto it this week. I'll try and get onto it this week. And then Christmas morning came, and my family hadn't got up, so I was busy having a cup of coffee, just relaxing. I thought, you know what? I'll go and listen to that footage, because he's bound to ask me again. I've got a bit of time. AM? Why don't you just turn yourself on, Cag? What's it, AM? You ruined my story there. Just turn yourself on. I'm
just answering your question. It's all good.
Okay. So I thought you were having a go at me. So I finally listened to it, and he said, he obviously recognized something. He said, do you want to talk to me? And it came out with his name. And then he said, who is it? And it came out clear as day, came out with Dad. And he obviously heard that, because he said, well, what do you want to say to me, Dad? It came out with, I love you, like that. So I clipped that little bit off, and I sent it to him that Christmas morning. I got a message back. He said, you will never know how much that meant to me, you sending it today. He said, he basically said that he always thought that his dad wasn't proud of him and didn't love him. So to get that on Christmas morning, that, who is it? Your dad. What do you want to say to me? I love you, like that. And it was just such a special moment. And it's the only time I got time. Funny how coincidences, that was the only time I had time to look at it after 2 months. Happened to be that morning. So almost like it was meant to be. But the amount of times it's become personal. It's and I know you two have had it on your tours as well. Personal stuff.
For me, it's a real highlight, because, you know, you go back through your last year's investigations with some of the guests, and, you know, you might get, if you're lucky, 1 or 2 a year where it's a real personal experience. And we don't even react or interact in those circumstances. It's the guests. And I always tell people, especially the Railway Museum, is one of the reasons why it happens is because whether you believe in this stuff or not, you know, you're open. You walk into one of these locations, you're listening to ghost stories, even if you're dragged along and don't believe in ghosts. If someone wants to give you a message, prime time to do it, right? Because you're listening. We've got the stuff there to be able to do it, and they're the ones which are coming through to give you the message at that time. You don't need a medium, you don't need a psychic, you just need to go into those locations and keep your senses open. Don't need to keep your mind open, but just keep your senses open, and maybe you're going to have that type of experience. And it depends on you, and whether you had someone who's passed recently too, who might want to get you that message.
I mean, even if it's just random and people are thinking it's their loved ones, you know, at the end of the day, I can't say whether it is or not, because I didn't know their loved ones, but if they get comfort out of it at the end of the day, then, you know, is there any harm in it, really? Anyway, it'll be interesting to look at those signals visually to understand their form. Really good question. So many good questions, guys, and we've run out of time. In fact, we're 10 minutes over. I didn't think we'd go that long. I thought we struggled a bit at the beginning, but we got there. And I can tell a whole load more, which we'll get to one day. Very quickly, I had to stop using the ghost box for about 6 months. So I'm going to finish on a last tale. I was taken, I'm not going to go into the case, but I was taken by a ABC reporter out to the middle of nowhere. He didn't believe in ghosts. He was just desperate to get a lead. And I knew he was a skeptic. So you can imagine how embarrassed I was when I said, well, how about we use this? And he goes, well, what is it? And I said, it's Ghost Box. It's a broken radio. And I'm playing it. There is no radio words coming through. None at all. It's in the middle of nowhere. No AM, no FM. It's just the whole way through. And then I asked about one of the victims and the name. And you got a little bit of static because it is one of the, I'm not going to say the names, one of the victims' names here tonight with us. There was this static, then a clear female voice came through and said the name. And then it went back to static again. And if you could have seen the reporter's face, because both of us just got the chills and the hair. Brett knows the case. He didn't stay on that night. And then it started to leach through into my tours. It started to come out with relevant information about the case, kept coming out with the name. And eventually I used to just go, I'm just turning it off now. Okay. It's like, so I stopped using it for 6 months because of that. And I can't explain that. I was saying to my farrier the next morning, hey, we went on this case and this is what happened. And he said, well, what's Ghost Box? I turned it on. First thing it said was that name. And it's just like, I'll turn it back off again now, then, shall I? I don't know. Is it the dead? I'm not even going to say. Is it the dead reaching out to us through some form of manipulating radio frequencies? Or are we imagining all this? And this show is not about saying one or the other. This show is about, well, here are the weird things. Here's why we use it. We're still looking into it. It's going to come down to you guys and what you believe. And our tours are all about you using this stuff, you trying out the Ghost Box and seeing what you think, whether it's rubbish, whether it's real, who knows. Any last words, Craig, before we sign off? And Cag, you can turn yourself on now.
Well, my only last word would be is that, you know, I think that one of the things about what we do is you need to learn a lot more about it. And even if you've done it 1,000 times, do it 2,000 times, because until you are actually in that environment and in that situation where something like that happens and you sit back and you go, oh my God, you know, it's hard to know exactly what we're talking about when it comes to, you know, what things come out of the Ghost Box, how they come out. Because sometimes you just sit back and you just go, oh my God, what just happened? And I think that, you know, the more you do it, the more likely you are of experiencing something, whether it be a Ghost Box or something a little bit more dramatic on the investigations. We've got to keep trying. It took me 5 years before I had an experience at Old Talem Town, same with the Ghost Box. I've never liked Ghost Boxes, like I said, but it takes a while sometimes to warm up to them. And when you get that response, you have a new respect for it. And, you know, look, I think most people coming in our investigations, they're not dummies. They're there to listen and to experience and to be educated on these sort of things. And for everyone to go back and go, there's something very, very unusual about that method of communication, is exactly what we're trying to do. And at the end of the day, we're not going to know. And like I always say, you're not going to know if you get the other side. We can discuss this as much as you like. You can be for it. You can be pro or con, whatever you are. I don't think we're meant to know. But geez, trying to find out, it's pretty interesting.
It's an interesting journey. It's an interesting journey. And, you know, as I say, embrace the unknown. Wouldn't it be awful if we thought we knew, if everything in this universe was explained? How boring would the universe be? How boring would our lives be? It's like, for me, I like the mystery. I hope it's never, I honestly hope it never is proven, because I think, you know, it's the mystery of it. It's our own journey trying to find it, and I enjoy it. I just love it. But there you go. I do try and keep a rational mind. So All right. Well, we've been on way too long, so I am going to turn it off. I'm going to say goodbye to all these awesome people that have been watching tonight. Thank you so much for coming on, guys, and supporting us. If you want to hear more of the Ghost Box stuff, go to the YouTube channel. We do have some Ghost Box sessions up there. I've just found all our old stuff from Paranormal Field Investigators when we started using it, so I'll be putting more of that up soon. Apart from that, we're all now out of lockdown from midnight tonight here, because we were in the naughty corner for 3 days, weren't we? So
We were.
we were, but we're being let loose free after midnight. So, but this is why we're not working tonight. We would normally be doing tours, and we thought we'd better put in GhostCast. We've been on for a while. So, but thank you for your support. Thank you for all your supporting the tours and everything else, especially the Patreons, the subscribers. You are awesome. You're the ones that have been keeping us going. And we will be back on as soon as we can with another episode. And by the way, guys, send me a PM. What subject do you want to? In fact, tell us in the comments, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook, what subjects would you like us to cover? What would you like to see us talking about? And we'll make a list and we'll come on. So, all right. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Stay safe and keep washing those hands. Catch you later. Bye.